Hello, Bainbridge. I'm Stefan Goldby, the President and CEO of the Bainbridge Chamber. Welcome to this community conversation with one of the candidates for City Council ahead of the upcoming elections. In the interests of fairness, we're asking all candidates the same set of 12 questions that knowledgeable Chamber members have helped us write, though their answers may lead to individual follow-ups or requests for clarification. Each candidate will have up to 45 minutes to answer all 12 questions. None of the candidates have seen the questions in advance, and their answers will be presented in full. So with no further ado, and with all that in mind, I'd like to say hello to Joe Deets. Hi, Joe. You are running for District 7, the North Ward. Is that correct?
That's correct. I am the incumbent, and I'm running for re-election.
That is not one of the 12 questions.
Oh.
All right, moving on. So let's begin with just your level of community engagement. Can you talk about which island organizations you previously worked for, with, or volunteered at?
Okay, just to clarify, are we talking about pre-council or just since I've been
in
on
general?
Bainbridge?
Yeah, incumbents are part of this, so in general.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've been on Bainbridge for 20 years, arrived here in 2000. So I have been engaged, I've been engaged with the city for very early on because I worked in clean energy from pretty much the time I arrived here. So I've worked with numerous organizations on the island for advancing clean energy. Let me see, certainly the senior center. I've worked, obviously I mentioned the city, and this was pre-council days. I did a community solar project on City Hall that was installed in 2012. That is still the largest photovoltaic system on the island. Let's see, worked quite a bit with Puget Sound Energy. A lot of this is energy related. But let me just also say I volunteered at the school district because, I'm a dad and my kid goes to school here, so I did that. I also was a volunteer for Kitsap, Hospice of Kitsap County for a couple of years. I've been in, prior to council, I was on the ethics board for 2 years. I was chair of the ethics board. So much of my my engagement with the community has been, one, in clean energy, and two, with the city. And also in the clean energy, I'll just say part of my work was we did what we call Go Solar campaigns. People might have heard of Solarize, whatever campaign. There's a Solarize Thurston County right now as we speak. Well, we did our version of that, of Go Solar Bainbridge or Go Solar South Kitsap, and that was be a geographically concentrated effort to help people go solar. We had an installer, we had a finance company, we had a manufacturer, solar manufacturer, all pooled together. So a lot of engagement with the community on Bainbridge for, since I've been here.
Great. So as you've been actively campaigning and talking to islanders for a while now, what would you say are the top 3 concerns you hear from our community? And I guess as a sidebar, did any of them surprise you?
Well, let's just say I've been council member for 3+ years. I've made my practice to be very accessible. I've had open office hours from January 2018 since I was elected. So I've met hundreds of constituents hearing about their concerns. And also as a candidate, I've been canvassing, doorbelling. Interesting, I'll just go to the canvassing because that's what springs to mind, which I'm doing today, by the way. When we've knocked on hundreds and hundreds of doors this last month or so, and concerns of people are affordable housing, traffic. Interesting, a lot of people like bike trails. They say, hey, this bike trail that was just installed, we love it. We really thank you for doing that. And then, or we really would like a bike trail. And my laptop was making funny motions, so hopefully I'm still here. So affordable housing, transportation, traffic, occasionally some development questions, which I'm happy to, whatever is important to constituents is important to me. Let me just say that. Certainly talking to the business community, it is finding workers. That is a critical issue. I mean, just spend some time talking to any employer on the island, and chances are they are looking for workers. So that is a huge issue.
So the recent countywide land use report concluded that our island's growth is roughly on track to hit its intended 2036 levels, but that the growth itself is not happening in line with our community's stated comp plan. Do you agree with that? And how do you think the island's residential, commercial, and community needs can best be balanced with the preservation of our natural resources?
That was an earlier draft that, yes, I think we're at like 90%, no, excuse me, 96% of our estimated goals. So we've basically been meeting our growth targets. And let me just say, when it comes to population allocation, I serve on the Kitsap County Regional Coordinating Committee, which is the broad organization that looks at this. And we will be examining this issue for the coming future. Let's just say by spring of next year, we will be making a final allocation of population allocation. Kitsap, very quickly, Kitsap County has been given 34,000 people to plan for growth by 2050. And then it's up to, that's what's been given to us by the Puget Sound Regional Coordinating Council. And then it's up to us, the different jurisdictions on Kitsap County, to say, okay, of that 34,000, who gets what, okay? So just broadly, that's where we're at. The buildable lands report was, we just talked about this last night at the council meeting. I'll just say, I don't want to get into the weeds here, but we council members asked for some edits in that report. We didn't want to give the impression that, hey, Bainbridge wants more growth any more than we want. Again, we want smart growth, sustainable growth. We want the comprehensive plan asks for or outlines where's the growth to happen. Is it to happen in Winslow, in the designated centers? That's where the growth happens. And why should the growth go there? That's where the transportation network, that's where the ferry is, that's where the buses are, that's where the shops are, that's where the schools are, that's where businesses are. That's where we want the growth to happen. Has that been happening as we would like? Not, in my view, not as much as we would like. So it's a little bit of how do we direct? We had a little semantic argument offline the other day of someone was saying, well, do we promote growth? And no, we don't promote growth. You know, we, the city. I would say, yeah, we don't promote growth, but we try and direct growth. Okay, what growth that comes in, we want to say, okay, this is where it should happen. Now, having said that, you can't tell people what to do with their land, right? So then let's be clear about that. But we want to make it easier, incentivize where the growth happens. It is in Winslow. So can we do a better job? Absolutely. And this is, we have one good technique, tool that we actually have on our books, but we haven't been using it very well. It's called the Transfer of Development Rights Program, or TDR. We actually have that since longer than I've been on the island, like 20 years, but it's never been used. It was just very ill. Okay, I don't want to say what happened, what went wrong with it, but it was not utilized. And so now we're taking another serious look at a TDR program. And very quickly, what is a TDR program? That's where folks in the rural areas, they can sell their development rights to, say, someone in the designated center who owns property, like in Winslow, say, and so you get paid. Say, you know, if you or I own, you know, a certain acreage in the rural areas, you could sell the development rights to someone who then takes those rights and develops it in Winslow. So it's what we call density neutral, because you're just shifting the density from where maybe someone would have done it to where we would like it to happen. That's like creating a whole market, and there's a bit of complexity to it, but I would say certainly I'm strongly in favor of that, of spending time and resources to make that happen. I think an answer to your question is growth targets, basically, we are in line with it, but can we do a better job to steer the growth where it makes sense, as opposed to where maybe it makes less sense for us? Because if it's spread out all over the island, then suddenly we have more transportation issues, more infrastructure issues. So let's put the growth where it should go.
Well, that leads to a natural follow-up question then. What do you think requires the most urgent update in the current Winslow master plan?
I would say targeting some of the districts for what we call inclusionary zoning, and such as like the Ferry District and maybe the high school district. I'd have to make sure I got those districts. I think it's generally those. But so what is inclusionary zoning is we will allow a greater density in exchange for something, a public benefit, which a public benefit to us is affordable housing. So it's sort of like you go to the developers that we want to build and say, okay, and we want to build a certain size. Great, you'll do that. But what do we get? The city, which is representing the community. So an inclusionary zoning program, we did talk about that just when COVID was hitting. So, and then nothing's happened since then. So we're going to revisit that issue. But inclusionary zoning is fairly, again, like a TDR program. There's a bit of complexity, and I don't have a decision to make on what allowances do we have. It's very much a moving part when it comes to inclusionary zoning, is how much are we willing to give up for this community benefit? And so let me just say, I like let's explore it, but I'm not coming out and saying, yes, this is what we're going to do. I want to find out how much do we need to give up, in terms of building height and density, because no one wants a 6-story building on the island, I don't think. But is there some targeted locations in Winslow that we could perhaps do some more denser allocations, and then getting something in return?
Thank you. So COVID has prompted an unprecedented shift in the operations of business, nonprofits, and even city operations. What parts of that pivot do you think will turn out to be permanent changes, and how can the city best support those changes?
Really, what we have seen is, I mentioned this before, is the hiring issues. My understanding of pandemics is for whatever reason, it tends to favor labor, the follow-up after pandemics, and that seems to be happening here, across the board, across the country. And we're seeing it here that, again, businesses are having a terrible time getting workers. And why is that? Is because workers, one, don't live here. We have an extreme affordable housing issue. So that is a huge emphasis for me, is to address that. So let me see, make sure I understand the question. I don't want to get off track here. What is the city doing to help businesses relating to the pandemic?
And nonprofits, and just generally the organizations on the island, are looking very different from the way they did a couple of years ago. How can the city best support that?
Okay, well, another area is first off, when the pandemic hit, the city has unlike other cities, does not have an economic development person. We do not have anyone on staff who would step up and help. So I volunteered to step up because there was sort of a vacuum. And what did that entail? Because I'm just a council member. I'm not a full-time employee to do this, but I would engage with the chamber. I engage with you, Stefan, and your predecessor, in the downtown association, and say, what do you need? What you guys, you two organizations are kind of our conduit to understand the needs of the business community. So what do you need? So I took it on to start that process. That was like in May of last year, I think. I'm trying to remember now. And then that's where we started regular engagement between this, let's say myself as representing the city with the chamber. I come to your meetings regularly, as you know, and trying to understand, what do you need? And some of it is, I'd like to see, well, first off, don't get in the way when businesses are trying to survive, and they're trying to make a reasonable effort. One area that I was pursuing and wanting to make sure businesses knew that, say you have a retail establishment that's on the street, and people are having difficulty, they don't want to come into the store, and maybe it's a restaurant, for example. Well, you can have outdoor seating, and now this is not a novel idea. Seattle's doing this, Poulsbo's doing this. And we were want to make sure that was available, that it was known that, yes, if you want to have seating outside, or like, say, the dance center on Madison, they actually have an outdoor dance school. So allowing that, and not making this trying to make it easy on our part, so that you come to us, and this was my emphasis to the city, is let's make it easy for these permits, and hopefully that's been happening. I have not heard there been any permitting issues, but part of my job as a council member is, if there's issues, whatever they are, please let me know, because I will then go to the city manager, who returns my phone calls. So I would say engaging, first off, acknowledging the issue that the businesses and nonprofits need help. We need a viable economy in our community. It's amazing I have to say this, but some people don't. Excuse me, I have a cat. These are people who have their livelihood. They hire workers. We need this for our community, and they provide essential services. So how do we do that? And a lot of it's starting with engagement with businesses, which, for whatever reason, there had been, let's just say, a mixed history relationship between the city and businesses. And I want to change that. And hopefully that is starting to evolve to the positive. Where there is more engagement. Doesn't mean that we're always seeing eye to eye on things, because we have a particular perspective to businesses, but I think we share the common interest, at least I do, and I know I have colleagues in council who share this interest, that we need a viable, functioning economy on our island. So engagement, not getting in the way. We did have some help. We provided a grant program for small businesses, and to be candid, I just thought that was kind of a Band-Aid. Kind of came and went. We helped, 40 businesses, but it was something. So moving forward, I think it's a mixed bag how things are going. I think probably some businesses are doing pretty well. I mean, you go into Winslow on the weekend, and as a local, it's crazy. You don't want to go to Winslow. That's when all the boat people come. So I think some businesses are doing well. Quick aside, the business that my daughter works at told me last Saturday it was the best day they ever had. So things are looking up, but we are not by any means out of the woods.
You've touched on this slightly already, but obviously one of the biggest business challenges for our island community is finding new employees, and the biggest struggle those potential hires point to is the lack of affordable workforce housing. You've talked about inclusionary zoning, but beyond that, what are the practical steps that you're prepared to take to address the island's need for affordable housing?
Well, we started last night. Council met in our business meeting last night. We had the city of Bainbridge Island received $7 million from the federal government for what's called American Rescue Plan Act funding. $7 million, and it was there were some things that we couldn't put the money in, and some we can't, but it was fairly broad, actually. So $7 million, we allocated, I was very pleased, $3.75 million for affordable housing, which was more than Housing Resources Bainbridge was asking. So we actually exceeded their request. I can't wait to call Phaedra and say, hey, how do you like that? So what that will do specifically, and one, making life easier for Housing Resources Bainbridge to do some particular projects that they have in the works, is it will save them time. Talking with Phaedra a few days ago, She said if we met their request for the 3.5 million, it would save them 2 years. So we just advanced affordable housing, listen, if I understand, by 2 years. So that is something very real, concrete, and I want to continue doing that as much as we can. We do have an allocation that we get. Oh gosh, sorry, I'm trying to remember. It was in our car tab fees, but we get $500,000 a year. We're going to get annually that we can allocate for affordable housing, a recurring revenue source. So that is a continual funding request, that funding that will be happening. And so your question, what are we doing for affordable housing? Again, trying to make things easier for Housing Resources Bainbridge, helping them, because they are our partner. We are not developers. We're not housing folks, but we set policy. We have a budget. We can make decisions to help make these things move forward. Other areas relating to affordable housing that I would like to see is the city does own some surplus, I'll just say land that really looks surplus to me. Whether you're going to talk about the police station, but I'll very quickly say there's 3 sites for the police station, and we're only naturally going to choose one. It's 3 sites in terms of property the city owns. So those properties, the 2 that we don't choose, I would like to see us use that for affordable housing. So maybe that's another question down the list, Stefan, and I'll go into more detail on that.
So that's a part of another issue as well. I mean, put simply, how best do you think diversity of all kinds can be increased on Bainbridge Island?
First of all, we absolutely need diversity, and Bainbridge is becoming a very stratified community. It is, what is the average home price? I think our last I heard was 1.4 million, which is, let's just say, is insane. I mean, I couldn't afford to move here now. I moved here in 2000 and it's just gone through the roof. So that is not a healthy community to where, unless you're exceptionally wealthy, you can't afford to buy a home. So to me, that highlights a real problem of having a diverse, vibrant community. So if the question is how important is that, I'm trying to make sure I'm answering the question. It's critical, but it's also a very hard problem to solve. Let me just say, whenever you're trying to solve a market-based issue, whether it's getting away from fossil fuels or affordable housing, things of that nature, my experience, it's very hard, but you can do it. We can, and we must do that.
So how best do you think can we do that? How can we foster that?
One is electing the right council folks. That's my segue. Is elections matter? They really do, and not everyone on council is on board for affordable housing. I mean, to say some folks will talk, no one will say they're against it, but actions speak louder than words, let me just say. So we have not done a good job on affordable housing. That's been a real disappointment to me. And so last night was a big step in the right direction. Another step we took was we're initiating what's called a housing action plan. And what is a housing action plan is it's you sort of look at what is our inventory, what is the needs of our housing, and what do we have? So when it helps us target what is our solution, because we need to understand, I understand we need housing, but what exactly do we need? And so we have that analysis. So that's something that we are moving forward on. And speaking of council support, let me just say, when we voted on that in April, you think this was a no-brainer, but it was a close vote. It was 4-3 on council to move forward on a housing action plan. Get out of here. I was a swing vote. I couldn't believe it. I'm the only council member running for re-election who voted in favor of it. So something for keep note of who else you're interviewing.
All right, so beyond that issue, what kinds of infrastructure improvement in general do you think Bainbridge needs?
Certainly sustainable transportation. If I mentioned just often doing all the canvassing work I'm doing, it's great because I'm meeting people that normally I wouldn't have spoken with as constituents. And I would say people talk about bike trails, trying to get around. Um, we need to do that. And again, going back to last night's allocation, we gave sustainable transportation the maximum money we could, which was $2 million. So we have a sustainable transportation plan that will be launched fairly soon. I'm not on that committee, but my understanding is that they're getting very close to rolling out the plan. So we're sort of getting ahead of that, saying, we know you're going to have some projects that you're going to say we should do. Here's at least $2 million to get the ball rolling. So that is very real. And why is that important? Is then that helps people get around, not use their cars. It's a quality of life issue. It's an equity issue. Maybe not everyone can afford multiple cars. My family, I have there's three drivers in my family. We have one car. So we try and enforce, hey, if you're the one without a car and you need it, get on your bike. There's also a big, let me just quickly mention alternatives to having a car is Ride Pingo, which is an app that Kitsap Transit launched on Bainbridge as a pilot program. And what is Ride Pingo? It is a Uber-based app for public transit. So you're at your house or wherever you're at and you say, I want to go somewhere else on the island. You have the app and you say, I want to go from here to here, and the bus will come pick you up. I've been using that on a regular basis when I have my meetings with the city manager. So reducing reliances on your personal car, that can save money. I mean, if you're smart about it, because then you don't need that extra car and it takes traffic off the road. So let me see if that was, make sure I'm following all your questions, Stefan.
So infrastructure, any other kinds of infrastructure?
Yeah, so okay, so sustainable transportation. I am also on what's called the SR 305 working group. And what is that? That's a regional working group between Bainbridge, the tribe, City of Hillsborough, WashDOT, and the county. And that is, broadly speaking, that's doing road improvements on 305 from the ferry terminal to Hosmark. The state gave us $36 million to spend, which is not nearly enough. And so people have heard the discussions about two proposed roundabouts on Addisville and Westport Madison. That is part of that project, the monies that we got from the state. And what will that do is, if anyone, I'm sure all of the listeners know that the traffic coming out of the island is horrendous, and the traffic in the morning, and then similarly, the traffic is horrendous coming off the island in the afternoon. Why is that? Probably, I'm guessing, the workers are coming onto the island or commuters. And so we really need to address these bottlenecks on 305. And so those roundabouts are designed to help the traffic flow through better. So, so that's a very big infrastructure project, and that I'm quite familiar with.
What do you think the general trend of falling enrollment in Bainbridge's highly rated and well-funded public school district is most indicative of?
Small families with young children can't afford to live here. Seems pretty obvious with the, like I said, medium house price of what, 1.4 million. That is a flashing danger sign, that really is. And I'll just say, thought to myself here is, I need to have the school district engage with us and help promote the issues of affordable housing. They do come out in support of that, but I'd frankly like to see more effort. And let me say, just occurs to me, they own a lot of surplus land, come to think of it, the school district does. Maybe they can give some of that out for affordable housing projects. It's not just the city. So, so yes, it's certainly, it's not a healthy sign. I mean, think of it. The population in this region is is increasing exponentially, and yet our school enrollment is going down. That's counterintuitive until you realize, why is that happening? What people can afford to live here are not young families. So my candidacy is very family based, unlike my opponent. What I'm trying to do is try and help working families be able to live here, because that's what makes a vibrant, healthy community.
Thank you. Should Bainbridge take a leadership position in reducing waste, educating consumers, and promoting reusable items in our community's everyday life? And if so, what would your key initiatives be in that area?
Yes, and let me just say, this is part of waste reduction is part of the city's climate action plan that we approved last year, December of last year. We approved the plan, council did, that plan that was put together by the Climate Change Advisory Committee. These are citizen volunteers with a high degree of expertise in the environment and climate action. And so there was we approved the plan last year, which is an outline of actions the city and the community can take to basically make us more resilient with the changing climate. And among the actions is waste reduction, as well as decarbonization and becoming more resilient as our climate is obviously changing. So waste reduction is a big part of that. We did pass an ordinance in June relating to single-use plastics for retail food establishments. And then we are looking at a more broader ordinance for general waste reduction. And big part of what I push is moving forward with this broader ordinance. Let's set up a task force to look at this issue. Let's work. I'm very collaborative in my approach. So I like to not just me or the council make a decision. Let's bring the stakeholders in to on a particular issue. And this was a good example of this. So I got my colleagues to agree. We set up a task force composed of a couple council members, people from the environmental field with expertise in waste management, and business folks. And so this task force started in July, and we've met, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. Stefan, you're on the task force, so
that does sound about right. Yes.
So this is something that in the works as we speak. Trying to think when our next meeting is. It's next week. So that is something we need to do, and it's critical that it's not just something council says, lays down, this is what you have to do, business owner. So this was critical to me to bring in representatives from the business community who could say, well, this is what works, doesn't work. And because you're not going to be effective unless you listen to all the stakeholders. So reducing waste, yes. And then another relating to waste is I'm working with members of the Climate Change Advisory Committee to bring in a biodigester on Bainbridge Island. There has been some small versions of biodigesters on Bainbridge. We want to have a larger, more ambitious biodigester. So we took a field trip in May this year to see a biodigester on Vashon Island. It was run by this company called Impact Bioenergy. We really like it, and so short of this story is we want to bring such a biodigester, but even larger, to Bainbridge. And so I could just say, last night I received a letter of intent from a company that finances projects such as this. So stay tuned. We may well have a biodigester on Bainbridge. We may well have an ordinance that takes measures to reduce our waste, but does it in a measured way. That the last thing I want to see is to harm our business community. It's going to be an adjustment, no doubt. But I think what I've seen from the task force, getting to that, is no one disagrees with the need to reduce waste. It's just, how do we do that? And so it's actually a tough nut to cut, as you know, Stefan. But I think we're making progress on that.
So, with only limited time and resources to tackle all these challenges of Bainbridge life in 2021, can you name the 1 to 3 specific actions that you would like to define the legacy of your potential next term of office?
Definitely on the climate action. I have a clean energy background, so I would say that's part of my DNA. So definitely start working on the implementation steps in the climate action plan. I will hang my hat on, I'm not sure if I would say legacy, but the work I do. Why am I on council is how effective I am. And I will just say I'm I think uniquely qualified for doing that work because I have done clean energy projects. I've been a developer in clean energy, so I understand the finances and legal structures. So pursuing the climate action plan, that's a pretty big lift in and of itself. Second is, again, getting back to affordable housing. Let's not take we got sidetracked various reasons on affordable housing over the years. Let's get back to that and recommit ourselves. Last night was an important first step, but we need to continue that. We made great strides, but it's not like we're done. I don't think we'll ever be done with addressing affordable housing, or we'll ever be done with climate change, but we need that commitment, and you need someone like me who takes on that as a committed role, as that's where I will work for you to make sure these things happen. Another area I would say, I think you asked for 3, equity. This is a very, let me just say, white community. I'm a privileged older white male, fully admit it. And one thing that I have become more aware of as a council member is that not everyone in this community feels welcome, and which, frankly, I'll be candid, that came as a surprise. I wasn't aware, but I am very aware of it now. So how can we really actually be a more welcoming community? And that's on the racial side. That I would say that's also gender issues, and frankly, I would say class issues. People of low income, the fact that they're being displaced and they can't live here. What does that say for equity? So this is why I want to stay on council, because I think we're like at least pointed in the right direction in every one of those areas: climate, housing, equity, but I want to see that through for another 4 years of hard work. And if I'm not elected, let me just say, my opponent is not of these views, at least not in the way that I am. So I think elections matter, and this is a very important election for people to decide.
So in closing, we've talked about what you would like to do, how you'd like to do it. There's another factor. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of working atmosphere will you strive to create on City Council if you were elected to it?
The same atmosphere I've tried to cultivate as a council member. As folks well know, it can get contentious on council. We have it's okay to have different views. I mean, there's every one of my colleagues, there's times that I've agreed with them and there's times I disagree. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with having disagreement, but it's how you express that. And unfortunately, we have seen in the time that I've been, and I've had various colleagues come left, and I have new colleagues, and it's been very disturbing to me, some of the snide remarks, passive aggressive, or just downright nastiness on council. And we need to, that doesn't get you anywhere. To me, it does not. And it's, to me, honestly, it's a way of intimidating your colleague, or intimidating staff, or intimidating a constituent by belittling them and pretending that you know more than them. That is not my style. I'm inclusive and collaborative. From day one as a council member, I've had open office hours. I've probably been more open and transparent than any council member, and I'm not bragging, that's just simply a fact. So I'm all about inclusivity, listening, and then I vote. I have to make a decision. Now, when I talk to constituents or colleagues, or maybe even you, Stefan, and you say, Joe, I don't understand why you voted this way. And then my job is to help you understand why I voted that. Now, what I feel is I'm successful is if you say, okay, I get it. I understand why you did it. I may not agree, but I understand why you did it. To me, that is what, at least understand why I made a decision, because I'm answerable to every decision, every vote I make on council, because I'm your representative. And you know, I try and not always our decisions are easy at all. Last night was very hard to decide what to do with $7 million, just for example. And I think we came out very well. But I really think hard on every vote, and really try and get it right. And some of my most proudest votes actually were no. I did not vote for the critical areas ordinance back in 2018 at the time. Now that it passed, and why was that at the time is because there was a lot of dissent. There was the school board, the school district said, we have serious concerns about this ordinance, as did even such organizations as Friends of the Farm. So I was hearing all this, and so why are we rushing into this? We're not ready to vote. It was my position. So I actually voted no, and I that was my position. I didn't feel we were ready, and anyway, it passed anyway. So what? Similar with the police station, when we paid $8,795,000 for the Harrison, I felt we could get a better deal. I voted no. I totally agree we need a new police station, and maybe Harrison's the way to go. It could well be, but I honestly felt we could have gotten a better deal. Not by millions of dollars, but I thought we could have gotten a better deal. So I voted no. So I guess what you need is someone to kind of critically analyze the issues. It's not always gray or black and white. It's often gray or muddy, and make the best decision they can under the at the time and under the circumstances.